Good morning, everyone. It's Lindsay Baker with the Action Hour here every Saturday morning at 10. And I am so excited because today with me I have Dr. Reese Halter, who is an ecological stress physiologist and forensic scientist. He's also an award-winning broadcaster, which you're going to hear as soon as he opens his mouth. And he's the amazing author of many books, including The Gen Z Emergency, which is one of the things we're going to talk about, the emergency of our planet, and many, many other things. I'm so pleased to have you here today with me, Reese. Thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on this Saturday morning.
Yes, and I want to jump right in here, and we're going to talk about the whales, we're going to talk about the sharks, we're going to talk about the massacre of the wolves. You said over 200 wolves, and we want to jump right into that video here. So let me...
Discovery of widespread One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. We all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years, but the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer.
I want to just let you talk a little bit about this, and we'll go into the second half of the movie. Wow. When I watched this, my first reaction was, oh my gosh, killing 200 wolves, that's incredibly horrible and inhumane. But then as I started to watch the video, I realized the scope of the tragedy, not only tragedy, but what this is doing, this does to the planet when this happens. So go ahead, take it away, if you would.
Well, I guess the most distressing thing, to be very honest, is our relationship, yours, mine, collectively, all of our relationship to Mother Earth. There are at least 2 million kinds of different forms of life. There may be as many as 10 million, but there are over 2 million that are known. And it turns out, Lindsay and viewers, that everything on Earth depends on everything else. Everything is interrelated. And when we take things away, when we log, when we fish, when we mine, we're destroying our Mother Earth, the system, and all of the parts. The wolves have been persecuted for over 100 years. And when I mean persecuted, in 1973-74, when the Endangered Species Act was created, if it weren't for that act, the wolves in the lower 48 states would be extinct. And with the loss of the wolves, because they're what we call apex predators. They're at the top of the food chain. When they are not present, really all hell breaks loose. And this remarkable discovery, now 20 some odd years ago from Yellowstone, really truly highlights the importance of the wolves to keep the food chain and their predators, their prey, the deer, in check. When predators are removed, the prey numbers take off. When the prey numbers take off, disease sets in, as well as overgrazing or overeating the system.
Why is that? Let's just slow down for a moment.
Yeah.
Covering a lot of information. It's all very, very interesting. Why does disease level go up? Because the rodent population moves into the urban areas, or what?
Well, the number one thing is, and this is applicable for all life, hello humans, when there are too many of anything,
Right.
you get overcrowding. When you don't have space, and you don't have enough space, disease kicks in. Call it COVID, if you may. And we can talk about the COVID is a symptom, and it's a symptom of, in my opinion and many others, the destruction of the natural world, in addition to humans eating wild animals. Totally unnecessary. But so when you get overcrowding,
also due to the use eating animals in general, animal agriculture is the big contributor as well. When we look at the swine flu, the bird, the avian flu, all of those come from eating animals. Our unnatural interaction and use and abuse of animals is causing the problems.
And badly, hugely killing Mother Earth. For instance, this is very, very important, bit of a slight digression. Animal agriculture and the fossil fuel-based fertilizers that are growing the feed, the corn and the soy, they're running off into the water along with all of the manure. And when they hit the rivers, when they flow into the rivers, then they flow through and they eventually empty into either lakes or seas and oceans. What happens is they're so overly rich with phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium that we get these massive plant, we call them algal blooms, and the byproduct is they suck all, when they decompose, after they have their little lifespan, drop to the bottom, they decompose and suck all the oxygen out of lakes and oceans and seas. We have over 520 enormous dead zones in lakes and seas and oceans, and they're expanding, all due to animal agriculture, which is subsidized. Now, here's the simple fact. In the United States, less than 4% of our entire agricultural land is dedicated to fruit, vegetables, seeds, nuts, and herbs. Ladies and gentlemen, United States of America could feed 1.5 billion people, plant-based foods. Now, the cool thing is, I'm a scientist, right? I actually spent 14 years at 3 different colleges around the world specializing to start my journey. And so I'm very science-based, but I also am, I speak to the world, not the 12 smartest people. Let me tell you, the science behind eating plant-based meals is so deep, like 50 years of data, that if you're sick right now, please switch to a plant-based diet. There's every reason to believe that most of your ailments will be cured simply by eating plant-based foods.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's go back to the wolves, okay? We're getting
well, we digressed.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and watch the second half, because it does tie in. It's all related, as you say, but let's go back to work.
Yeah.
Hang on.
niches for other species. And the deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be tracked most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving. The number of songbirds, of migratory birds, started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. Here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed. More pools formed. More riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was a soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, we can hear us. That's great. I want to let the credits run out. Give people credit that made the movie. All right. So check out that. Actually, you can Google this name and learn more, I imagine. But you'll tell us more about that, won't you?
Well, so that is stunning, no question, and it highlights what I was speaking of earlier, of the importance of having the whole system kept in check. If you think of the system in a way like a pyramid, the wolves really are at the apex. But there's an even greater piece that would be added on now if that video was made today. And that is that the wolves, much like the sharks and the whales, the dolphins, the porpoises, and so many other creatures, are nature's based solutions to these greenhouse gases, the fossil fuels that are cooking literally our planet. And let me tell you how. So what my colleagues have done is they've examined in Alaska and northern Canada, where there are healthy wolf populations. When the wolves are present, they keep in the North Country the moose population in check, quite low. They allow the some moose to live, but they're in check, meaning that the trees are able to suck the CO2 out of the atmosphere and store it in the wood. In a couple of forests alone in the North Country, by having the wolves present on the landscape is the equivalent of removing 21.5 million automobile emissions each year. They're allowing the trees to do what trees do best, which is draw down the CO2. So let's put this back in the circle. And call me a bandito, so be it. My biggest concern over the last 4 years, the former administration was absolutely horrible for Mother Earth. They went to every possible extent, and when I say every, I mean air, water, and animals. They removed almost all of the in-place laws to protect them. And when they did that, of course, numero uno was the Endangered Species Act. And what they did, surreptitiously or otherwise, was they inserted the phrase in the Endangered Species Act. So when an animal or plant is on the road quite close to becoming extinct, the government agencies are able to get it listed, and that means these animals and plants and ecosystems falls well, or at least stopped from being destroyed, hunting, bulldoze, logging, fishing, etc. They inserted the term that if there was an economic gain to be had, that it superseded the animal, plant, or ecosystem from being protected. In other words, the wolves and the wolves were delisted. So in the lower 48 of the United States, currently at this very second, the wolves do not have protection, number one. And our contention was that the United States Wildlife Service deliberately disregarded the science behind making the decision, because in the former administration,
particular organization, as we said, and
right, but people need to know that, no, I mean, the Endangered Species Act is controlled by a department, and the department disregarded science. And I don't know about any of the listeners, but I can tell you this. In an emergency, I would say 10 out of 10 people having a heart attack, when the paramedic arrived, they would say, "Oh, I don't believe in science, and I'm not going with you." Balderdash. Science.
We're getting a little bit. Let's get back to, so we can keep this. We have a lot of stuff we want to cover, so we're getting a little bit further off. Let's just kind of stay within the realm.
I was protecting my, science has been beaten up, and my colleagues have not stood up and said, "Hey, wait a minute here," right? Because everybody runs to their phone, and it's all science-based. That's all. So all the animals need people to protect them, right?
So my question to you, Reese, is what can people do? Now we had this, and what you're saying is totally agree with you on 100%, that the past administration, I agree personally, that they have done everything they can, it appears, to destroy every protection law that was there. Now what we want to focus on this show is not what happened before as much as what we can do now. So that, can we focus on that? Because we got a lot more to cover. We want to talk about the whales. We want to talk about the sharks. We want to talk about...
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing that anybody can do is support any number of groups that protect the wolves, right? And here's the thing: anybody who is a hunter is a coward, because if they're a real lover of nature, which they claim they are, which is suspicious at best, get a camera. If you love the planet, get a camera, sit anywhere. I don't care if it's your backyard, a green space, or go to the wild. Just sit there. And I guarantee you, you will get some amazing images, and then share them with people. Share them, because joy and curiosity and wonder are what make us feel good and bring us together with the natural world.
And I think also that they could contact their representatives because we want to. I mean, supposedly now the new administration is going to be reversing a lot of this. Do you have any information about?
Yep, they're reviewing it. Absolutely, absolutely. The Biden administration has a review process in place to I'm sure they will overturn the wolf decisions so that the wolves are back on the endangered species list. But in the meantime, what happened is some militant right-wing sports hunting men with small appendages
Yes.
were able to twist the rubber arm of the Wisconsin government. And this is how deranged this situation is. With it, yeah, it's more than that. It's a lack of appendage. But the point is, in 48 hours, they massacred 214 wolves in Wisconsin. So they actually killed more wolves than they were allowed to. So 48 hours, our friends, the wolves,
supposed to be allowed to kill?
Well, what they did is the hunting group hired some highbrow attorneys, and they were able to overturn a rule in the Wisconsin state that allowed them to massacre 214 wolves, and they did it. Well, 200, they killed 14 more than they were allowed.
And what was the basis of what was the rationale was wouldn't be for profit. They said they were overrunning. There were too many of them. Was that what the rationale was?
I don't know, some cocked up some non-science. That's like me telling you I have the boogeyman in my corner, therefore I need a bazooka. It's nonsense.
Right.
And it all happened because the wolves were taken off the endangered species list because Junior of the last twerp was a sports hunter.
Yeah.
So, it's the apple doesn't fall from the tree. But, here's the thing. Real men and real women buy a camera. And let's say you have a lot of disposable income. So you really have to be the cock of the walk. Take the picture, buy 100,000 billboards, put the living beauty on the billboard, put your name as big as the heavens so everybody knows that it's you, and the animal's alive. Because here's the reality. We're in this man-driven sixth mass extinction, and we're losing plants and animals at a rate that supersedes the previous 5 mass extinctions by a couple orders. In other words, it's really bad. I mean, and we can't live on this planet. But I want the listeners or the viewers to understand this. This is how privileged we all are. And we all are privileged.
And I want to get to your video because we want to talk about the sea. But so let's wrap up.
But this is important.
Okay, go ahead.
We depend on all the 2 million other forms of life to live, to breathe, to eat, to do everything. They do not depend upon us. If the human race vaporized tomorrow, other than the domesticated animals, and some would revert, cats, for instance, this system would go on. We can't go on if we vaporize everything else. Right?
Exactly. Right. Let's talk a little bit about now. We talked about the land being destroyed. Let's talk about the sea. So let's watch the Sea Shepherd clip, and then we're going to talk about Japanese whaling and Norway whaling. And we only have a half hour left, so we're going to talk too. So let's keep moving a little bit more because you have to come back again.
Okay.
That's so much to share. Hang on a sec. Let's get this little video going here.
Welcome aboard Bruce the Rib, Sea Shepherd's rigid inflatable boat. Bruce the Rib was used to protect the doctors of the sea, the sharks, during the brutal West Australian shark call. Did you know that each year 100 million sharks are murdered for their fins? Their fins are used for shark fin soup. Since 2000, 1.5 billion sharks have been slaughtered. The oceans cannot exist without the sharks. If the sharks die, we die. Please support the Okra Project and Sea Shepherd Australia, because they're protecting the doctors of the sea, the sharks. Reporting for Earth Calling SOS, from the shores of Fremantle, Western Australia, I'm Earth Doctor Reese Halter.
All right, Reese. That was
Who was that guy?
about the beard. You look a little different.
Yeah, he was a younger version of somebody I know.
So what's happening with the sharks now? Any improvement?
No, it's bad. That was done in 2015. We've lost another 500 million. The sharks have swum the oceans for the last 400 million years. They have survived the previous 4 mass extinctions, and we are absolutely destroying that almost all of them. You know, what isn't spoken of, it's a bit macabre, and I would advise anybody, I'd advise everybody actually. My new book, The Gen Z Emergency, I spent some wonderful time with 3 young, Gen Z is the under 26s, with 3 influencers. And they asked me some very, very hard questions of what's happening to the planet and what we all can do. And I've written, this is the 12th book, but this book is close and near and dear to my heart because I will really lay it out, and it's hard. You know, I've been told, well, why you always speak of these problems? Why don't you just write a whole book on solutions? A third of the book is solutions, but we have to understand the problems. And when you understand a problem, there are at least 3 solutions for every problem. So the oceans surface covers 70% plus of the planet. But if you take into account the depth, which at its deepest point is some 7+ miles, the oceans and all the livable space in the water occupies about 99% of the living occupiable space on our planet. It really is the blue planet, the ocean planet. And the atrocities that take place every second on the ocean of every day are unspeakable. And we really cannot continue to do this. I support Sea Shepherd 110% because of all the groups. This is the interesting thing. The founder, Paul Watson, is a remarkable visionary person who understands passion probably better almost than anybody I've ever met. And that is because his group, Sea Shepherd, has maybe 36 paid people, including 9 captains of the ships. All the ships are vegan. If you go on the ships, you have to sign, are you willing to die for the whales? If you're not getting on the boat, number 1. Number 2,
how is it that dangerous? I mean, how
well, it denotes the work of this is conservation in action. These are unarmed, obviously, people, but they're going up against poachers and pirates. But my whole thing with Sea Shepherd, which is remarkable, is they rely on some 100,000 volunteers. There's 36 paid people. There's 9 boats, about 36. Maybe there's a handful more. There's 9 boats, and the donations go into funding the operation of the boats, and they rely on 100,000 volunteers who really love the planet. The oceans are being brutalized, and the only way we can survive is if we end all fisheries. And it brings us into the whales, which really was one of the main reasons that Sea Shepherd was founded, because of whaling, which was brutal, which is prior to fossil fuels. Oh, look at that humpback. You know, they breach. The males do that. They do that. It's fun, number 1. But number 2, they are trying to impress the females, and they impress the female by the splash. So the greater the breach lifting out of the water and smashing down on the top of the water, the ripple sound is like the female goes, "Ooh, bargain! This one, he could be the one." It's fitness, right? In nature, it's all fitness. It's you got to pass the strongest genes on. The humpbacks, as a slight digression, sing. They sing while they hunt. The males sing for the females, and every 10 years, the entire song changes.
Wow.
The stunning thing is these songs can be heard in the day across the entire ocean basins. Fossil fuels and these seismic surveys that pound every 3 to 5, 10 seconds, 242, 250 decibels. They punch down into the water, hits the seabed. The ripple, the echo back tells them if they've got fluid underneath, oil, but they're deafening everything. And a deaf whale is a dead whale. But these whales are remarkable. They have a language. They have big brains. How big? The sperm whale's brain is 5 times proportionally the size of the human brain. And by the way, sperm whales, remarkably, a 55-foot long, 50-ton creature, big head, the Jonah whale, they can dive as deep as 2 miles. Let me tell you, the atmospheric pressure of 250 Earth atmospheres would squish a car into an attaché case, and yet these 50-ton creatures are able to go down there for it's pitch dark for 45 minutes, and they're searching for these colossal squids, these 25-foot long squids with these arms that have retractable switchblades. It's the greatest prey-predator fight on planet Earth. That's between the sperm whales and the colossal squids. Awesome.
About what's going on though with the whaling and so forth, because we want to focus on what.
Yeah, there's a couple rogue nations, at least a couple rogue. Well, those are the sperm whales, and they're dead. They're filled with plastic. So the ocean is the ocean actually.
So wait, let me slow you down a minute so people can understand, and I can understand. You're saying that these that are dead here are
those are sperm whales. They swallow plastic. They swallow plastic, and the Olympian of diving in the oceans they're filled with plastics. If there's only one reason why you never eat anything from the ocean, everything from the ocean is filled with plastics. Right. Now you may say, no big deal, a little plastic. The deal with the plastic is this: it's a perfect sponge. In the oceans, there are hundreds, there may be thousands of man-made potent chemicals. When they go into and they're attracted to the plastic bits, the pieces, the microplastic, they're in the animals. And when a human eats an animal, since we're an apex predator at the top of the food chain, that poison can biomagnify millions of times up into us. So a little bit of poison in your clam or your fish is awful for a human being. The world stopped in 1982 or 83. The powers that be said that's it for whaling. We had massacred at least 5, maybe 6 million whales mercilessly. Their populations haven't come back. That's an orca, which is a toothed, it's a cetacean, and the orcas are the largest of the dolphins, some 55-ish number of dolphins. They're the most widespread. Orcas have a brain 2.5 times that of a human. And by the way, they have a nerve in there that goes to their ear that is the largest diameter nerve in the entire animal kingdom. They can decipher 400 clicks, their language, in a second. 400 clicks in a second. They are incredible creatures. So the world's dead.
Why are they being massacred here? What's going on here?
Well, that dolphin was filled with PCBs. That dolphin is Lulu. Lulu was from the North Sea. There's so many poisons in the ocean that half of all of the orcas are incapable of reproducing. They're going extinct. The oceans are a sewer. Jacques Cousteau, my hero 50 years ago, said the oceans were a sewer. I am glad in one respect, he's not here today. He would be mortified at how toxic our oceans are. And it has to end. And it ends with each of us, number one, not eating the ocean. Number two, when we band together and we say, we are not going to purchase a product, guess what? The big people, and I won't name a name, will buckle. They all buckle. If consumers don't buy it, they won't supply it. And we are powerful. We all have handsets, and we all read, or we all get emails or texts. When we say no, they will stop, and we have to say no. Japan and Norway have said F you to the world, and they're whaling. The biggest question that people say, well, gosh, the Japanese and the Norwegians must be starving. That's why they're hunting. No, they're not. No, they're not at all. The government, what they're doing is the governments are subsidizing them to kill the ocean because they can, like a bully bastard. And here's the terrible thing, because it is terrible. I don't know much about these slaughterhouses, thankfully, but I do know that when the animal finally gets to wherever horribly it goes, boom, it's gone. These harpoons, these penthrite tipped grenades, rockets, hit my brothers and sisters, the whales, and it takes up to 45 minutes for them to die. It's the most brutal, horrible thing. And these aren't just sensitive animals. They are intelligent. Now, let's say you take Dr. Reese's emotions away and you say, oh, come on, they're just animals. Who cares? No, 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 no. These are nature's based solutions. The whales, ladies and gentlemen, this is where it gets very hard. That was terrible. That was a deliberate killing of that was the recent story from Japan. A minke whale swam into a fish net, and instead of letting it go, they brutally murdered it. But let me get to the bigger picture, and this is really important. We've got a few minutes left. When we burn, matter is neither created nor destroyed. It's just transformed. So what does that mean? That means when we burn fossil fuels, a chunk of coal or a gallon of gasoline, a liquid or a solid, when we burn it, it turns into a gas. It's heat, right? Heat. The heat is not, yes, some of it goes into the atmosphere. 90+%, 93 to be exact, of that heat energy is stored in the oceans. Each second right now, this 8 billion plus living large group that we belong to, humans, each second we are infusing the equivalent of dropping 10 Hiroshima bombs every second for the entire year of heat into the oceans. Why am I telling you that? Because the oceans drive the climate. On top of that, that heat has disrupted the ocean currents, the cold currents, from rising to the surface, carrying particularly iron, but also nitrogen. Why? Well, those nutrients fertilize the phytoplankton, these plush green mats that are all over the ocean. They're the base of the entire marine food system. The heat has disrupted and stopped 40% of the phytoplankton from living on the planet. You may say, okay, so we're missing 40% of the phytoplankton. Whoop-de-doo. It is a whoop-de-doo because almost 2 out of every 3 breaths of oxygen come from the ocean. The whales and their flocculent fecal plumes, their poo, is the nutrients that are helping to regrow the missing phytoplankton on the ocean, which gives us our oxygen. But it doesn't end there, like the wolf story. The whales, each whale, during its 100 years of living, if we don't murder them, remove 33 tons of carbon dioxide. That's the equivalent of 1,000 trees in eastern United States. The whales are nature's solution to these rising greenhouse gases. Now, when the whale dies, it goes to the bottom of the ocean, and a bazillion animals that live on the very bottom slowly decompose it, and they take that carbon, which was a gas, which is
So it goes through
now
the whole
a solid
system.
in the animal, and they put it in the ground.
Yeah, it's pretty much like what we saw with the wolves and how animals on
Right.
the land affects the entire system. You're saying that the same
Right.
thing happens in the ocean. So we only have a few more minutes left here. I do want to talk about your book, but I also I know that a lot of what you write about are some solutions, because I think we've really kind of depressed our audience a little bit. Important to bring out these points, and we do the shows like this often, but we also want to give them some actionable items that they can do to take away.
Yeah.
So take a little.
I mean, the first one is to go plant-based. There's no question of that. It's healthy, it's easy, it's water smart, and it's compassionate. That's the first thing. The second thing is everyone with a home should plant at least and grow at least 2 food-bearing trees, because they attract the pollinators. Don't use any chemicals. Put wood chips around your trees to conserve water. And the closest we can get to food security is by growing our own. Some of you may want to grow your tomatoes. You may have pots if you live on a balcony, if you live in an apartment or a condo. Some may have a little hunk of land in your backyard where you can grow your own food. The best way to keep healthy is by taking your own food security into yourself. Then there's other things that each of us can do, which is to support any number of terrific animal groups, plant groups, any of these groups that are able to help the planet. You can volunteer. The best way to meet like-minded people is to volunteer, whether it's with our friends PETA or whether it's with Sea Shepherd or any number of groups. And the other thing is to encourage your children and you walk more. Walk more, less screen time. This much we know. If you simply breathe for 15 minutes around a big tree, any tree, anywhere, you are giving yourself, your body, some of the strongest medicines that science knows today. Just breathe, right? And the last thing is to do kind acts. Do random kind acts. Help at your I love dogs, but help at your local shelter. If you can't adopt an animal, then help them in any way. Volunteer. Maybe you can give a little bit of food. Maybe you can give moral support. But any way that we can try to become more like everything else, all the animals and the plants. The key, we believe, is this, is to be curious, because there's no difference between an 8-year-old brain and a 78-year-old brain if you have curiosity. We're lifelong learners. So find your passion, find your joy, find your wonder and curiosity. And I suggest it's in your local green space, wherever it is, your daily walk.
Good points. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your book. How did you get, well, first of all, how did you get started in all of this work? What brought you to that? We only have like 10 minutes left. So.
All right, well, the easiest connection is that when I was a little boy, my dad loved trees. I planted trees. I knew as a very young person that my calling was with trees and with nature, and it's taken me all over the planet. I've studied with some of the best. In fact, I studied with the best group in the world in Australia. That's what took me to Australia. And I cut my teeth professionally there. I broadcast there. I'm a broadcaster in Australia. And I'm just a curious person. I love reading. I read as much as I can. I love to learn. I love the children, and so I understand, as many of the compassionate, planet-loving people do, that the way to affect change here is to support the youth and support their climate strikes and the Extinction Rebellion people, because this is very cool, and I talk about this in the book. If we together, if 273 million of us in 195 countries demand change, this is momentum-driven, nonviolent demonstrations, we will get it. The numbers show us that we need 3.5% of the population demanding change, and the change is a zero combustion economy. We need it by 2030. The kids get it, and the money's there because each year governments are handing $5 trillion to the fossil fuel industry. All we want is give us the $5 trillion, and I guarantee you, in 5 years, I have a group of some really smart people. In 5 years, we can change this equation like that. And the kids want it. They want clean jobs. They want air. It's their birthright to have air, to have water, living corals, forests. So we can do it. We can do it.
We all get together and do our part every way you can. You've written many books. Tell us about some of the other books you've written.
Well, the most exciting one, I think, that people, and the best selling one, has been the honeybee book, because the bees are remarkable. They give us our food, our clothes, and they too, like the orcas and the sperm whales and others, have big brains. And in fact, my colleagues at some of the top brain institutes in the world, they study the honeybees. There are 20,000 kinds of bees. The honeybees are the biggest brained bee, and they have a language. They like to sleep. They dream. They very well may dream while they're asleep. They learn while they're asleep. They have a very sophisticated language. And the cool thing with the elephants, the honeybees, and the orcas, they're all female-driven societies, and they're selfless. That is, they're an all for one and one for all, and they do everything that protects the unit, the family, and ultimately the entire species. We have so much to learn from them, and we are, and it's just a matter of slowing things down. I think we live in a real fast world today, and that speed is hurting us and hurting everything. And my vegan friends and I know that when you slow it down, and when you walk more, and when you are empathetic and compassionate, that we're making a difference. And it is the good news that wins the day, and we have to seek it, and we have to be inveterate optimists, and we have to be willing to change. Change is the only constant in life, and change really is opportunity in disguise.
Well, we have one comment here. Maybe you want to address this one.
Okay. What do you got?
Very, very complimentary, but it says here, a good discussion, but the segues lead to statements incredible to believe, such as wolves affecting trees' ability to process carbon monoxide.
Carbon dioxide. Good discussion, but the sequence to statements too incredible. Well, no, that's nice, but these are science facts. They're in the Gen Z emergency. It's on my website, drreese.com. It's a really, really good book, and it's very accessible, because everything that I've said in there's a link to. And so people don't have to take umbrage with my opinion, because it's fact-based. And it's got passion, right? And there's kids in there that are making a difference. And we all need hope. We all need hope. We need more hope. And we need to believe that it's not going to be as bad as some of these fear-based, salacious news agencies that prey on people. You know, we're all having a hard time. I don't sleep so well. And I bet you there's like 80 million other people in our country that don't sleep so well. So we need hope.
Yeah. But we have hope. The hope is that as things are exploding, the vegan world is exploding.
Yes.
As well as I think it's my opinion that, some people will never change, but the availability of clean meat and clean fish, that's one term used for it, but cell-based, stem cell-based, these companies are coming up. I know there's one on the Plant-Based Business Hour. Elizabeth Alfano, one of my colleagues, did a show with a gentleman from France, I believe, that has started one of many companies. This is a whole new market that's coming out. And here's another thing we can mention, Reese, how people can support. If you're investing, these new vegan companies are exploding, and companies that are coming up with ideas to improve the environment, that's enough. You can put your money there into those projects. You also can, like you said earlier, don't buy what's destroying our planet, and you'll see how quick these corporations will backtrack.
Yeah, I mean, 50% of the processed food in the store has got palm oil, and it's just awful. It's destroying all the forests for this oil that is subsidized. And the key is, I said we're all sped up. If you take an extra 10 minutes at dinner time, you can make a whole food, plant-based diet that's super easy, super healthy, and you feel better. You're lighter, your spirits are lifted, and if you can grow it, all the better. And support your local farmers markets, because this is now, instead of going global, we need to look to each of our little communities to build stuff, to repurpose stuff, to grow our food. And we have these technologies. This is not new, and it's just what we want. And ultimately, all of us need to understand we have to consume less. It's not a matter of, oh, we should. We're running out of things on our planet. So to be smart and to give our children a chance, we all just consume less. Spend more time outside. I guarantee you'll feel better. If you garden, it lowers your blood pressure, your stress, cortisol, and you just feel better, Lindsay.
Yes, I agree so much. Everything you said, I agree with 100%. Particularly the fact that we do have to make changes in our diet. It would have a tremendous impact on reversing climate change, etc. And we will have to have you back on again, Reese. There's so much more we could deep dive into any of these subjects. But the takeaway, do you feel like the Gen Z will be leading the march towards?
Oh, they are. And here's the thing: we have no other option. This is our only home, and we have to roll up our sleeves. The Gen Zs get it. They're not as consumptive, and they're passion driven, right? And I'm very heartened by their actions, their intelligence, their desire to protect what's left. And I know they can do it. I'm helping them. Tens, hundreds of thousands of other experts are helping them, and it's great. It's a revolution, and it is the time is now, and COVID is helping us to get an understanding that we cannot destroy everything.
Yeah, to get people's attention.
Yeah.
And I think a lot more people are plant-based curious, if not, trying it out. I was going to ask you, are you a chef? Do you do some cooking?
Oh, I do. Absolutely. I love to cook.
Maybe I can have you as a guest on Live.
Oh, I love that. And what I was going to say, though, is the cool thing with plant-based, it's not an all or nothing, right? If you're making a transition, do it once a week. And then when you've mastered your 1 day a week, go to 2 days and then 3 days. It's easy and there's a zillion online stuff. There's zillions of books and fun cooking shows that show how easy it is, and it's cost effective, and it's fun, and you feel better, Lindsay. You just do. I mean, James Cameron did a terrific movie with the top athletes in the world. They're all plant-based, right? It's the tomorrow, and the logistics is there's no way that we can continue to add billions of people and eat animals. We just can't. We have to become vegans. So easy. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Tom Vincel, he said he'd love to have you back on, and we will bring him back. He's one of our loyal, one of our #1 fans, along with Tina Walker, and they're so supportive. Lisa Carlin came on and mentioned Tracy Childs, another Food for Life instructor, as well as Lisa. We want to send out our good wishes to Lisa Carlin because she broke her leg, and she has not broadcast her amazing shows where she brings on physicians and talks about plant-based medicine and how the food, just what we were talking about, Reese. So I will definitely request a lunch break live with you. We'll get a time
Awesome.
and have you on, and we could chat more about the animals and how to save them.
And we can make a great Snicker snack.
Okay, Snicker snacks it is. You know, I think that's one of the things vegans feel a little deprived with the choices of candies. We need to see more vegan candy. So
well, look no further than fruit. Let me tell you, there's some.
Yeah, that's true. And true.
It's got sugar that'll kick you into the next generation.
You probably want to move people away from the candy when I'm talking about health, but
well, fruit is nature's candy, and if you really need a buzz, then you can. We'll help you.
Yes. Oh, I agree 100%. You know, I think it helped. I had some problems with my upper digestion, and I use fruit, blueberries, and different fruits like that. I don't say I'm not a doctor; it didn't cure me, but it certainly helped me.
Ginger, ginger is. We all need to eat as much ginger every day. Ginger in teas, ginger with oats and cinnamon. Oh, ginger is a terrific digestive stimulant, and it grows the flora in our GI tract. Very important.
Now I'm going to start munching on that ginger. My vegan sushi, which I love. So you have for Shields, Ontario. I'm going to check out your website, Dr. Reese, and see about what kind of support I can offer. Wow. Okay.
That's so cool. Thank you ever so much. And you know, as I say, we're all one, and together we are an unstoppable force for goodness.
That is true. So closing on with those words, I'm so happy to be back this week, everyone. And yes, Tom, to answer your question, this is a new background. Let me go this way. I'm going to be here in Santa Monica for 2 months, and then we're moving into our new home. So we are here for 2 months in this beautiful Santa Monica location. I'll be back on the air next week with another amazing guest. Reese, thank you so much for being on. We'll stay in touch. We want everyone to remind you again to check out his amazing current book and all his other books. We have your, let's just show that one more time.
Yeah, drreese.com.
drreese.com/books, or just go to drreese.com, and for super simple, and you'll find.
And if you want to read, the library is just chock-a-block with very cool articles that'll give you insight into, and there's links. There's thousands of links. So, you know, this isn't my opinion. These are
I love that.
Science-based, right?
Yeah. I love that. People can go for themselves. Absolutely. We want you to do that.
Yes.
Those of the group that, you know, our main core group here of viewers are, of course, mostly vegans. But this goes out, as I said, to many, many others. And we want them all to know that they are involved in a new revolution.
Yeah, we're all one. We really are.
So we will end on that note. Thank you so much, folks, for watching. Thank you, Reese, for being on. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.